Hello there, old sports. Limbo here, and welcome to the first of my Warframe overviews. Today we will be focusing on a frame that I see many people single out purely as the defense frame. The frame in question is Frost here. Now, I hadn't played Frost much, though I started to warm up to him as of late. He's a very versatile frame, able to do crowd control, support for his team, stripping armor, and dealing damage. Hopefully, by the end of this video, you too can warm up to this guy, because he provides a lot, and it's at an early point in the game. Let's start with how one gets Frost. By defeating the boss on Exta at Cirrus, you will receive one of Frost's three parts. Assuming it doesn't take 300 attempts, you should get it pretty quickly. The main blueprint is obtained by the market. Let's start by getting into Frost's passive. Frost's passive is that when damaged by melee, there's a 10% chance to freeze the attacker. I would say not to rely heavily on this, as you shouldn't get into the mindset of letting someone attack you. Warframe is a game where you need to be constantly moving, and your health is a resource. A resource you do not want to just let your enemies take. So, with that in mind, I would say don't rely on this. But at the same time, it can come in handy occasionally. But also, most of the enemies in the game are long distance attackers unless you're playing infested. The first ability is Freeze, a small projectile power that freezes whoever it hits. Additionally, those around the hit target take cold damage, and everyone is given cold procs. Freeze also creates a small space when it hits the ground. This space slows targets that pass over it. Though, in trying to get footage, it was difficult to tell what was the ice on the ground that slowed people and what was just the cold procs. Either way, I'd say you can ignore this part of Freeze, as you'll get more value aiming at someone directly or hitting the groups with its AoE cold procs. If you want to get some more use out of the ability Freeze, you can use some of your mod space to get the Augment Freeze Force. This applies extra cold damage to your team. You can see here with Breakaway as he damages them without the buff and then with the buff. While he didn't do a ton of damage, you can see how he got cold procs off. In this version of the recording, I only had 100% power strength, meaning it was only 100% cold damage, not the 240 I would have gotten with the mod loadout I showed previously. Ice Wave, although largely considered Helmand fodder, is still part of Frost Kit that has some niche uses. Upon casting, Ice Wave sends out a wave of spikes that damage enemies and apply cold proc. The range of this is deceptive, as you can see it damage and slow enemies that aren't caught within the spikes. As you can see, it doesn't really do that much damage, and it's pretty much a straightforward power with just damage and cold procs on it. So you can see why a lot of people probably toss this out for Thermal Sunder. If you want some more defense potential and Freeze isn't cutting it with its Ice Ring, perhaps look at Ice Wave's Augment Ice Wave Impedance. Essentially, take the ice from Freeze and apply that to wherever you cast Ice Wave. As you can see here, the effect is much more noticeable compared to Freeze, and this is only at base ability strength, though the slow effect doesn't actually scale with it in the first place. Ah, yes, the reason Frost was casted to the Pit of Defense. Snow Globe. Don't get me wrong, Snow Globe is good, but people seem to look at it purely as a wall. First of note is on cast, enemies in Snow Globe are both frozen and ejected. This can make it great for pushing enemies away from a downed ally. Also, enemies in the Snow Globe after its cast are slowed. Last of its other capabilities is that hitting a snow globe with freeze causes a small burst of damage. Though focusing back on its face value of defense, it has a brief period of time where it absorbs damage, similar to Rhino's Iron Skin. Second, its health scales with both power strength and your armor mods, so keep this in mind when you're modding Frost. Lastly, you can shoot from inside the snow globe, but not from outside. You can see it here when the snow globe stops my bullets. Snow Globe is also given an augment where enemies that pass through have a chance to freeze. There isn't much of note here, especially since you can't shoot into them to take much advantage, so I suppose it does put them in a good spot for blowing the globe up with freeze. Frost's final ability, Avalanche, is by far what I think most people should focus on if they want to escape from mobile defense and excavation. On cast, Frost freezes, damages, and strips armor of all enemies in range. At base, the armor strip is 60%, so with less than 200% power, you can get a full 100% strip. Its damage is also nice, as you can clear most low levels with the aforementioned 200%. Its freeze is also good for reasons we'll discuss later. If armor reduction, damage, and freezing wasn't enough, Avalanche also has an augment that gives you and your team overguard for each enemy hit. This plus freeze force can make him a good support frame if you do it right. Or you can stack this with Snow Globe to become more of a tank. To unlock the power of Frost, look no further than this critical augment you see here. Literally, this augment turns Frost from CC and defense into a damage monster. This demonstration is using level 125 heavy gunners with only a 36% strip, as that's as low as I can get right now. Now, with a full strip, I can shred through these things like a hot knife through, well, ice, as you can see. So now we come to the question of how does one play Frost? Well, you can pretty much play Frost however you want. If you want to be a support frame that buffs your allies, you can do that. If you want to be a damage monster that can tear through enemies easily, you can do that too. If you want to be someone who just builds for Snow Globe and sits on the objective, then yeah, you can do that. The point being is Frost is like a block of ice. You just gotta carve him how you want him. Thanks everyone for watching, and with that, that concludes the first ever Warframe overview I will be doing. I'll probably be doing another one of these. If you guys want to comment a frame that you want me to look at, then I can go ahead and do that at some point. But for now, that will be it. Goodbye.